Cartel violence is only getting worse, and today, it's not just El Chapo's Sinaloa cartel that commits the worst murders. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel is at least as brutal, and their leader, El Mencho, punishes anyone who doesn't agree with him, from civilians to high-ranking drug lords. But how does a famous drug lord go from this to this? This is Carlos Enrique Sanchez Martinez, aka El Cholo. His demise is one of the most gruesome cartel stories ever told, and it's all linked to the terrifying El Mencho. His fate was much, much worse than death. This is what we'll be exploring today. Trigger warning though. This video contains very graphic descriptions of torture and murder. This is your chance to turn back.
Wants you to work for him, you have two options. Say yes or be killed.
Jalisco New Generation Cartel took the fight to the next level, shooting down a military helicopter with a rocket-propelled grenade.
Tonight, the DEA is offering $10 million for information leading to the arrest of the Mexican drug kingpin known as El Mencho.
This is the man Carlos Martinez, aka El Cholo, used to work for. Nemesio Asegura Carvantes, aka El Mencho, went from a poor avocado farmer to a drug trafficker to one of the most notorious drug lords in the world. And somewhere along the way, he was even a cop for a few months. But he never intended to be on the right side of law. He just learned the ropes of military strategy and organization, which he would implement in his own cartel. El Mencho was inspired by both the police and Los Zetas, a terrifying cartel started by army deserters within the Gulf Cartel.
So what you saw was a change in the way drug cartels fought with violence. It was no longer those gang members with shaved heads and tattoos fighting with pistols and knives. It was militarized style, fighting like military units. And once they did it, this was spread across to every cartel in Mexico.
Los Zetas was the first cartel to make violence a goal in itself, rather than a means to an end. They gave honor medals to their most brutal sicarios, and they left mutilated bodies on the sidewalk or hung from bridges for people to see who they shouldn't mess with. El Mencho loves this. In 2009, the Milenio cartel, which El Mencho worked for, was dismantled after the arrest of its leader. El Mencho seized the opportunity and took over one of its factions, Los Metazetas, or the Zeta Killers. One of the right-hand men he took with him was El Cholo. El Cholo had been by El Mencho's side for a long time, throughout the 2000s in the Milenio cartel. So it's safe to say El Cholo knew his boss very well. He also knew his extreme brutality and disregard for the police force.
Mira bien, hijo de tu madre. Soy Mencho, güey. Relaja tu mente a la verga. Soy Mencho, güey. Relaja tus partidas, si no te voy a partir tu madre 10 toda tu bola de perros. Te tengo identificado 30 güeyes. Hasta tus putos perros te voy a matar si no te relajas, güey.
And he also knew how El Mencho responded to people he saw as traitors.
Tú ya sabes con quién traes la bronca. Para que sepas, aquí seguimos buscándote y no quitaremos el dedo del renglón.
CJ&G isn't even half as big as the Sinaloa cartel or other Mexican rivals, but they're known as one of the bloodiest and most brutal criminal organizations in the world. It's not just about the gut-wrenching number of murders they commit each year, or the fact that they kill cops and their families just for being on the side of justice. It's about the way they kill their victims. It's hard to even fathom a human being could do this to another human being, but this is the way of life for the CJ&G assassins.
They have a very intelligent strategy, which is basically branding themselves and looking like paramilitary power. They do have their full letters, right? The CJ&G on their vests. They dressed as properly military. They also have these high caliber guns. They have what they call those monstros, which are really basically like man-made tanks, you know?
The CJ&G is also the first cartel to directly target the Mexican government.
The latest cartel target, Mexico's military. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel took the fight to the next level, shooting down a military helicopter with a rocket-propelled grenade.
¿Un dron o qué?
Ese mero.
¿Dónde está el dron?
Está volando derecho arriba.
Hay un dron.
By now, it's not even about money anymore. It's about power. El Mencho has access to the highest-ranking politicians using fear as leverage.
And all that violence is only to have leverage in the negotiations with government, with politicians, right?
In short, El Mencho is the devil, so it's simply crazy that El Cholo decided to betray him. El Cholo first met El Mencho when they both worked as sicarios for the Milenio cartel. They were both tasked with protecting the drug lord Armando Valencia Cornelio, aka El Maradona. As the Milenio cartel crumbled after El Maradona's arrest and death, El Mencho took on the leadership position, and El Cholo, his friend and right-hand man, was a close second. El Mencho didn't become a cartel boss through people's votes. He took over and used his best and worst qualities to stay at the top. On the one hand, El Mencho was thoroughly disciplined, organized, and daring. On the other hand, he was a real-life monster with a penchant for torture and murder. He had already killed dozens of people by the time he created his own cartel, the CJ&G, in 2009. And after that, the murders only got worse and worse. You see, El Mencho was proud to display the main bodies of his victims for everyone to see. The Sinaloa cartel and the Tijuana cartel, for example, had El Pozolero, or the Soup Master, who dissolved thousands of bodies in acid for them. Most of the bodies remain unidentified. Only a few bone shards were found years after their disappearance. The CJ&G, on the other hand, left bodies strung up from bridges and posted videos of torture and murder online for the world to see what happens if you betray El Mencho's cartel. El Cholo was an active part of these horrors. He was El Mencho's top assassin and personal guard. El Mencho trusted him with his life, and for that to happen, you have to be pretty brutal. It's safe to say El Cholo was a violent man too. His position as El Mencho's personal sicario was an honor and came with a big paycheck. But it was this position of power that led to El Cholo's horrific demise. As El Cholo felt he was trusted and reliable, he started questioning El Mencho's bloody, ruthless methods. El Mencho had always presented himself as sort of an army general. He gives you an order, you follow it. No one is supposed to question him, not even his best friends. Or does a psychopathic ruler like El Mencho even have best friends? El Cholo saw himself as his friend, and he believed there was room for discussion when it came to CJ&G's administrative business. El Cholo just wasn't a yes man anymore. This didn't sit well with El Mencho, and as the years passed, a simple resentment turned into a full-blown rebellion, and a war El Mencho would win in the most brutal way imaginable. El Cholo's first act of rebellion was to carry out assassins without El Mencho's approval. In his mind, he already knew the ins and outs of the CJ&G, and he knew which people El Mencho would have wanted dead. But for El Mencho, the situation was different. First of all, he was a strategic man. He didn't kill impulsively. Everything had to be planned out. Second of all, his inflated ego dictated that everyone should follow his orders. And following El Cholo's decision to kill without permission, the cartel's financial operator, Marcos Hernandez, decided to rat him out. El Mencho called El Cholo to discuss this betrayal. At this point, the situation could still be saved, but El Cholo didn't bow down. In fact, he was furious at Marcos, and he could only think of ways to punish him for it. El Cholo assassinated Marcos in his car and set fire to it. El Mencho took this as a message to him. El Cholo didn't want to follow orders anymore. So El Mencho declared open war on El Cholo. Instead of running as fast as he could, El Cholo created his own small cartel, the Nueva Plaza, taking men from the CJ&G, rallying them to his side. Among his most trusted men was the CJ&G's head of logistics, Eric Valencia Salazar, aka L85. Of course, this angered El Mencho even more. Now, he was stealing his men. There was another problem. El Cholo knew El Mencho's methods and strategies, so he was one step ahead of his game. When El Mencho ordered a hit on El Cholo, the latter countered the attack by killing the hit squad commander. This was humiliating for El Mencho. Then, when he realized he was outnumbered, El Cholo allied himself with the notorious Sinaloa cartel. This was the ultimate betrayal. The Sinaloa cartel is the CJ&G's archenemy. El Cholo also posed as a real threat to El Mencho's cartel. Men were dying by the dozens in Guadalajara as both cartels were trying to exterminate each other. In 2018, 3 film students that were driving home from school were kidnapped and killed by the CJ&G. They confused them with members of the Nueva Plaza cartel. On a hot summer day in Guadalajara, you could smell the stench of corpses piling up from the war between El Mencho and El Cholo. People's lives were forever changed by it. By early 2021, it looked like El Cholo was going to win the war. The Sinaloa is much bigger than the CJ&G, and with the head of logistics on his side, El Cholo could always predict El Mencho's moves. On March 18, 2021, El Cholo almost celebrated his victory when he was kidnapped by CJ&G sicarios. He was taken to a CJ&G safe house and filmed as 3 armed men were standing behind him. First, the assassin asked El Cholo for a full confession. As he spoke to the camera, El Cholo revealed he was a double traitor. Reportedly, he cooperated with the authorities too. This is his full confession.
My name is Carlos Enrique Sanchez Martinez, aka El Cholo. I am originally from Guadalajara, Jalisco. I'm here because I am an enemy of CJ&G. I met with Omar Garcia Harfuch in the federal district so that he could give me his backing. This is due to both of us being after the CJ&G, and he did give me his full support. but he told me that he needed something relevant in return so that I could operate with his support and his people in the city. And so I kicked everything off. All of the crimes that took place in the local area, I am personally responsible for. And I myself called the authorities so they would turn everything into a heightened police matter. The individuals who sponsor support here in the city are Maria Alberto, aka L3, and Zambrano, aka L2. Anyway, I'm the person responsible for the grenade throw some time ago at the American consulate. This was done to generate panic within the city. I also gave El Marino the orders to kill the 11 Masons in Tonala. All the chaotic crimes that took place were done on my orders. But I did this on the condition that Omar Garcia Harfuch would support me in everything. He is a criminalistic individual.
Omar Harfuch was the head of the Mexico police at the time. Of course, he denied such cooperation, tweeting, "Regarding a video in which a criminal kidnapped by other criminals referred to comments about me, I reiterate that we will not be distracted by false messages from criminals. My commitment to society is firm, to fight crime to the last consequences." However, Harfuch's denial didn't matter to the CJNG at the time. As far as they were concerned, El Cholo was the ultimate traitor, and he was about to receive the toughest punishment a person could get. Before his confession was over, El Cholo sent a warning to his people.
Anyone that is left still supporting me, it's best for your own good to just start taking care of your families so that you don't end up like me.
These sort of confessions are hardly ever written by the ones reading them. Sadly, the CJNG has posted many videos, and in most of them, their victims begin with a confession. They usually praise their captors and downgrade their own cartel, warning people to stay on the kidnapper's side for their own good. It's heartbreaking to think that these are some people's last words, not chosen by them, only meant to humiliate them before they suffer a fate worse than death. Trigger warning. The following section discusses El Chapo's horrific torture. Skip ahead a minute if you don't want all the gory details. El Cholo was tortured over the course of 2 or 3 days. When he would faint, a doctor employed by the CJNG would bring him back to consciousness so he would feel everything. Side note, yes, the CJNG employs doctors for this specific reason. 7 of his toes were broken, and 1 of his toes was cleaned off. His legs were to many pieces so that he couldn't attempt to run away. His ribs were broken one by one, and another Sicario stabbed him and cut him several times. Then he was alive. And guys, it only gets worse. El Cholo was still alive when his eyes were gouged out. Finally, his tongue was pulled out, not cut out. Ultimately, El Cholo was killed with 3 gunshots to the head. This was sweet relief for the poor man. It's honestly hard to imagine how people can even think of a punishment so brutal, let alone carry it out, film it, and get a kick out of it. El Mencho is nothing but a monster and employs the very worst people. To think these assassins were once children. Before we move on, I must ask you not to go looking for this video online. It's a truly traumatizing experience to watch something so brutal and know it actually happened to a person. A few days later, El Cholo's body was found on a bench in Jardín Hidalgo, Jalisco, wrapped in plastic with 2 signs stuck on it. One of them reading, "The traitor, El Cholo," the same day his video was posted online. The autopsy would reveal the full extent of his stomach turning, and the doctors confirmed he was tortured over a prolonged period of time. The publicity of the body was a message to all the people of Jalisco. Don't mess with the CJNG. Do not betray El Mencho. El Cholo's absolutely disgusting death quickly made national headlines. At his peak, he was known as El Cholo, a prominent gangster and presumed head of the Nueva Plaza cartel, a criminal organization based in Guadalajara, Mexico. But in the end, he was simply Carlos Enrique Sanchez, his body left wrapped in plastic on a park bench in downtown Tlaquepaque, the Mexico state of Jalisco, yet another casualty in Mexico's bloody cartel wars. A former member of the notorious Jalisco New Generation Cartel, the CJNG, El Cholo was once considered the right-hand man of El Mencho, one of the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration's most wanted drug lords. After El Cholo's body was found, 12 CJNG members were arrested on suspicion of murder. The bloody war between the CJNG and the Nueva Plaza cartel was also over. But that didn't mean violence or gruesome murder scenes stopped in Mexico. Security analyst David Salcedo said, "Unfortunately, the bodies, corpses hanging from bridges, and remains with narco blankets are part of the daily landscape of violence that is experienced in many parts of the country." As of 2023, cartel kingpins are still on the rise in Mexico, and hundreds of drug lords are responsible for this. El Chapo has been in prison since 2016, and El Mencho, well, there are rumors he might be dead. For 2 years, El Mencho has been AWOL to the public eye. Some people believe he's still alive, hiding in the mountains. Others have heard he died following a respiratory arrest in a private hospital in February 2022. If that's true, the CJ&G will do its best to cover it up. El Mencho is a name that sends shivers down everyone's spines. With him at the top, no one dares cross the CJ&G. But if his death is made official, the CJ&G has so many enemies, it will probably crumble within months. Dead or not though, El Mencho has already left a terrifying legacy. He has thousands of men carrying out brutal murders just like El Cholo's, and other cartels are doing the same now. Even with El Mencho gone, cartel violence won't stop. El Cholo's horrifying death stands as a powerful reminder of just how far cartel assassins are removed from humanity. Nothing is too gruesome, no one is too violent. Hey, thanks for watching. As always, leave us a comment and let us know what other shocking drug lord deaths you know about. But before you go, don't forget to like and subscribe. And see you next time.